Welcome to this explainer. Today we're looking at language acquisition through a completely different, highly analytical lens. Have you ever sat down with a giant stack of flashcards, just staring at the same vocabulary words until your eyes literally blur and wondered, why is this so unnecessarily hard? Well, we aren't talking about endlessly chanting vocabulary lists today. We're talking about hacking language acquisition from the ground up, using systems design, information theory, and cognitive science. We're going to look at how to actually refactor the source code of a language to make it infinitely easier to master.
I want you to imagine something for just a second. What if you could learn a single foundational concept, and that one concept acted like a master key, a key that instantly unlocked 10 completely new words? You wouldn't be adding words to your memory one by painful one. You'd be multiplying them. You'd be leveraging the sheer math of exponential learning. Now, sound impossible? It's actually just a matter of structural logic. And understanding this mechanism is absolutely going to change how you view learning altogether.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the language efficiency gap, move into the power of morphological awareness, and then tackle the ultimate challenge, Chinese. After that, we'll dive into Dr. Fan's beacon anchor theory, discuss engineering the upstream, and wrap up with a new mental architecture.
All right, let's jump straight into part one, the language efficiency gap.
And this naturally leads us right into part two, the power of morphological awareness.
Let's unpack this gap and its solution. For most adults, trying to acquire a second language feels kind of like trying to memorize a phone book. It eats up massive amounts of cognitive energy, mostly because we rely on high entropy models. Basically, we're dumping thousands of disconnected fragments of info into our brains and just hoping they stick. But there's a proven workaround, and it starts with the morpheme, which is the smallest unit of meaning in a word, like roots and affixes. Think about the Latin root geo for earth, or aqua for water. When you learn these roots, you aren't just memorizing, you're building a really powerful pattern recognition system. You encounter a complex new word like geology or aqueduct, and boom, you instantly decode it without ever opening a dictionary. You get this incredible feeling of unlocking the language because you understand the structural building blocks. It shifts your brain from being this passive storage drive to an active processing engine.
To put that into perspective, 60 to 70% of English words have some Latin or Greek influence. Think about the magnitude of that for a second. By learning a relatively tiny set of foundational roots, you automatically unlock massive amounts of linguistic real estate. It's wildly efficient. It's an elegant system that just compounds your knowledge automatically. But, this leads to a pretty fascinating question. What happens when we step outside this ecosystem? What happens when we try to learn a language that doesn't use an alphabet or share these familiar Latin and Greek roots?
That brings us to Section 3, the ultimate challenge, Chinese.
For decades, learners tackling a logographic language like Chinese have struggled under what we might call the pinyin shadow, basically trying to memorize thousands of complex, seemingly random characters through sheer agonizing repetition. Conceptually, we're looking at two completely different approaches here. On one side, we have the old way, the high-entropy model. This is your classic brute force rote memorization. It ignores the rich visual nature of the characters and treats your brain like a hard drive with unlimited storage. But, spoiler alert, human memory simply doesn't work like that. Contrast that with the Meta-Chinese Institute's approach, the elegant code philosophy. Back in the early days of software, engineers had to write incredibly compact, thoughtful code. Why? Well, because hardware memory was strictly limited. Sloppy, bloated code slowed execution and caused the whole system to crash. We need to treat our cognitive bandwidth exactly the same way. Our mental energy is a finite, precious resource that demands a clean, structural architecture, not a massive data dump.
Now, let's explore Section 4, Dr. Fan's beacon anchor theory.
So the architect behind this elegant code is Dr. Fan, and his background is precisely what makes this approach so radically different. Dr. Fan isn't a traditional linguist who just spent his career exclusively in dusty language departments. Nope. He was a user experience expert at Huawei, he holds a PhD in information systems, and he was a researcher at an artificial intelligence lab. When someone with a deep background in AI, UX design, and information theory looks at a language, they don't see a standard list of vocabulary words. They see a massive data set. They see user interfaces and source code. Dr. Fan spent 12 years conducting a systemic audit of the Chinese writing system, approaching it with the exact same rigorous logic a software engineer uses to optimize an operating system. His ultimate goal? To literally refactor the linguistic source code of the language for the modern learner. Through this systemic audit, tracing current characters all the way back 3,000 years to their ancient oracle bone roots, he made a genuinely stunning breakthrough. Out of the thousands upon thousands of complex characters that make up the language, he identified just 300 high-impact beacons. Just 300. Imagine the sheer contrast here. Instead of staring at an endless, super intimidating wall of tens of thousands of random strokes, you're handed a distilled, highly optimized core of 300 fundamental recurring visual pieces. It completely demystifies the language.
Dr. Fan calls these beacons seed scripts because they literally carry the semantic DNA of the entire language. This is the absolute foundation of his beacon anchor theory. When you focused entirely on these seed scripts, the language transforms from an infinite wall of noise into a finite, highly logical, and totally conquerable system. And this brings us right back to that idea of multiplication we talked about earlier. You learn one beacon, and it anchors your understanding of 10 more complex characters. You aren't just memorizing a random drawing anymore, you're assembling logical building blocks, learn one, know 10. Your brain immediately shifts from panicking over unstructured data to happily recognizing geometric and semantic patterns. It is a profound shift in the mechanics of learning.
Moving right along to Section 5, Engineering the Upstream. Tim Ferriss, the master of accelerated learning, frequently points out that what you study matters more than how you study. And man, this is a trap so many ambitious learners fall into. The education market today is absolutely flooded with the how. We've got a million different gamified apps, spaced repetition flashcards, Pomodoro timers, elaborate study schedules, the whole shebang. But if the source code you're studying is fundamentally flawed, bloated, and disconnected, absolutely no amount of flashcard hacking is going to fix it. You just cannot optimize a broken system. You have to fix the what, the core material itself, before you ever start worrying about the how. At the Meta Chinese Institute, they operate on a very powerful unifying philosophy. A teacher's primary duty is to provide the most efficient source code possible. They aren't just giving you a slightly better way to memorize a chaotic list. They're handing you a completely restructured mental map. This is all about ensuring that the data you feed your brain has a high-precision lock-on rate. When the information is logically structured, it perfectly utilizes your finite cognitive bandwidth. You process it faster, you retain it way longer, and you actually upgrade your mental hardware to handle the complexities of the language effortlessly.
And finally, Section 6. A new mental architecture.
So, does refactoring the source code actually work outside of a controlled laboratory setting? Well, the validation is absolutely staggering. This structural approach is so innovative that it won the prestigious IF Design Award for Education in 2019 and was prominently featured in a TEDx talk. But let's look at the actual student outcomes, because they're even more incredible. Students using this exact method took first place in the U.S. National Chinese Speech Contest for 2 years running, in 2023 and 2024. On top of that, Dr. Fan's instructional series on the Great Courses Plus boasts a 4.9 out of 5 rating, and even more amazingly, it has a 100% recommendation rate. I mean, think about how rare that is. Learners are leaving reviews stating they learned more in 30 minutes with this system than they did in weeks of traditional, grueling classes. This proves something really profound. When you restore the visual logic of a logographic system, fluency is no longer about sheer brute force memory. It becomes a completely natural output.
I'm going to leave you with this final thought to really let resonate. If your current method of learning a language feels like trying to run massive modern software on a dusty old computer from the 1990s, maybe the problem isn't your memory. Maybe the problem is simply the code. So, are you ready to ditch the brute force memorization? Are you ready to update your linguistic operating system and unlock the visual logic of an entire civilization? Think about it.